First thing on our agenda, considerations and changes to agenda items and order, changes, comments, and questions from the public. No. All set?
Now?
Yeah, if it doesn't have to pertain to anything to the agenda.
Well, I probably should talk about the town plan.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, we can do, that's next thing. We're gonna do a
Okay.
draft, we're gonna do a review and edit on our chapters. And you're welcome to talk about it now, or if you have any comments on the chapter.
It's just comments.
Yeah, come on up.
Okay.
State your name for the people. You know how that works.
Sure. I'm Dick Pecor, and I live on Middle Road. And Middle Road is part of what we call the Northeast Quadrant. And it's typically agricultural land, but much less so these days. I think Murray Thompson is haying his fields, and that's about, other than, too far away? I'm too close to the mic? Okay, I can be trained. Anyhow, what prompts me to come before you is to recognize that our area is the only area in town that's not served by a water district. So we don't have the fire protection that everyone else has. It is problematic as to whether our wells actually are contaminated with radon. We have a bit of that going on as well because of our substructure. So what really kicked me off to get here was that my assessment changed. The property value of my house went from about $500,000 to $1 million. And I know that the risk is going to have to be assessed sooner or later by my insurance company about the replacement cost of my building and the rest of the buildings that are in the Northeast Quadrant and don't have sufficient water coverage. So what I'd like to do is to get you folks to think about putting some language in the town plan that's either shall or must or whatever, that everyone, regardless of where they are in town, needs to be served by a water district, get potable water. This is such a basic foundation document that even if we run a project in our area, we ran a broadband project and we were successful about getting all of our people together to do that. So if we tried to run a water project, we would need to have that impetus reflected in the town plan. Yeah. So that's really what brings me here tonight, is to kind of kick off that conversation. I've reached out to my neighbors. I'm willing to kind of honcho a project. I know I've got to go before the select board, but the select board needs to look at the foundation documents that come from you folks.
Right. We appreciate it. We haven't got there yet, but when we do, first we've heard of it.
So my question to you is, should I come back when it's utility time?
You can do that, utility time, and we'll be talking about your neighborhood too. So there's 2 times you could make the same pitch to us again, but it gets you on record every time, you know that. Okay. So definitely.
I kind of wanted to plant those seeds.
Yeah, your time is great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that schedule is online, I take it? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, you can go to colchestervt.gov/townplan.
Gotcha.
It's also right here. So just tentative dates for those meetings. Utilities and services would be October 20th. And then the neighborhood meeting for your neighborhood would be December 1st.
Okay, so end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
No, it's perfect.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Go ahead. You want to
Go.
So I'm not clear about water districts, because like where I am, I have a well up, in Sunset View. I mean, a lot of people have wells, but are they also part of a water district? This is just for my education.
Yeah, I don't know about every specific part of town, But if you look at the Champlain Water District map, there's a bunch of different strange districts, but suffice to say, most of the town is covered by piped potable water.
Do you know how close that is to you?
Pardon me?
You know how the closest pipe is to your area?
The pipe comes up Middle Road,
Yeah.
actually. It
Okay.
comes up, I know the names of the property.
Sure.
It crosses, it hangs a westerly cross,
Yeah,
goes across the fields, and then it hits Route 7 and goes north.
okay,
It goes right past the bottom of Coon Hill Road,
okay,
which would also be an unserved area
Yep.
of ours. We're Coon Hill, Middle, there's one house on Austin House Road,
sure.
Wright Farm Road, and Galvin Hill Road.
Yep.
That's basically what our area is.
Okay. Good, very good.
Great.
Yeah,
I'm always available.
okay,
Thank you very much,
Thanks
folks.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right. We're on. So now we're gonna review edit chapters drafted to date.
All right. So, good evening, commissioners. This meeting in the grand schedule was really kind of intended as like a catch-up meeting. So, you've heard a lot. You've discussed a number of the topic areas. In the background, staff has been updating data that's been presented to you. So you've reviewed housing data, reviewed some economic development data at that meeting. We've heard from the school district, Parks and Recreation. We've also reviewed demographic data as well. So there's been some updates to the text of the town plan made to include that data. That was provided to you in your packet. So ultimately, wanted to kind of note, and I guess I can just start my little presentation here so we can get on the same page there. So these are kind of the areas you've touched on in the town plan thus far. Like I said, homes, demographics, town services, there's been some work on that, so it's been provided in your packet. Cultural resources, cultivating Colchester, which is sort of a education, Parks and Rec chapter, and economy as well. Just a note, because there's some items here that are not checked off. Those are still to be discussed. So for anyone following along at home or commissioners, land use chapters are going to be 3 meetings. Those will range from starting in July and end in December. Natural heritage will be discussed in August. Energy, powering Colchester, will be discussed in November. And the transportation and utilities chapters will be discussed on October. So that's what you have to look forward to after this point. Like I said, tonight, really focusing on some of the stuff you've heard thus far. And, any feedback you have for staff related to those, we're going to supplement some information and kind of go through each and just note, what is the requirement for these chapters? What have you read? What are you seeing? Are there any other documents to consider? So updates since the 2019 town plan. So looking for some feedback on the actions and goals for these chapters. And then also, there's other planning documents like the Heritage Project that reference some of these, mainly education and town services, a little bit of economy as well. This could be a time to just say, are these goals still relevant? Do you want to carry some on? Maybe some we don't want to proceed with anymore. So that's really kind of the focus of tonight's meeting. So right off, kind of diving into the housing chapter, our homes. I will note that, right off, the requirement in state statute was updated in the previous couple of years, mainly to include housing targets, right? There are also some information about, using, creating specific actions to address the needs of, to achieve those housing targets. So the expectation is slightly changed with this one from the most recent town plan. So I want to make sure you keep that in mind. I will also note that this section may change again. So in S328, which is sent to the governor's desk, not signed yet, but still waiting signature. This adds to that section. So ultimately, some proposed language here would add a requirement to have an analysis of any regulatory, labor, and physical constraints preventing the development, redevelopment, or rehabilitation of sufficient housing to meet the housing needs and targets, and a description of what actions a municipality may take to accommodate the projected housing needs. Also, kind of documenting progress towards the housing element. Now, as planners, this is stuff we want to do anyway, and I think it's sound reasoning. Without that fully being signed yet, we're not sure where it's going to land, but just as a, you might see more detail in future drafts. In Colchester, I'm not sure. We can have a larger discussion about what those constraints may be in Colchester and where they may be located. For example, one thing that comes to mind is soil suitability comes to mind for certain areas of town. While there may be large swaths, if there's large amounts of clay soils, an on-site wastewater system to serve 50 units may not be possible there. Housing goal, just keeping that in mind there. But kind of jumping into the housing chapter itself, one thing to note is that the regional housing targets have been adopted by CCRPC. So this table that you're seeing here is likely going to be the table. This hasn't been approved by the Land Use Review Board, but it is on track and heading in that direction. You'll notice Colchester's regional housing target for, on the low end, represents about 34 additional housing units per year. High end, 102. Middle is 68. I believe it's a slight increase over a number you saw before, but ultimately, as you'll have read in the draft housing chapter, the updated data aligns pretty closely with that 68. It's less historically, but it's not like something that is unattainable. And kind of this number was modified based on, they were modifying their map. So that's why this number is likely different. Right off, any questions about the housing targets? And
the growth center built out, how much will that take up? Will that take up a majority of what our expectations are?
Yeah, so right now, right off the top of my head from working in development review over the past couple of years, there's at least one project that would cover about 1/3 of that mid goal. In terms of other available land, there does seem to be some available land. The growth center was never intended to house all housing growth in Colchester.
No, I understand what
but
its purpose
I think
is, but I was curious to how close or how much its impact would be if it was fully built out.
Yeah, we could look into that number a little closer, especially given what we've learned over the years.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, it seems like that growth center still has room to accommodate a significant portion of this target.
Right.
Any other questions about that?
Yeah.
So I was noticing, I think it's on page, where are we here? It's on page 5 maybe, about the rental inspection program that you don't think that we need that, or is that, am I reading, while Colchester could put into place a localized rental inspection process, the number of rental units and associated complaints don't warrant such a program at this time? Is it on page 5?
Sure, I just want to make sure I'm pulling up the right part.
In purple.
Yeah, so this statement was, as Logan mentioned, existing in the 2019 town plan.
Yeah,
If you'd like to have a conversation about whether or not we should change that, and I mean, there could be a discussion about it. I will just note that rental inspections currently, as we've written here, since the town plan has been adopted in 2019, that jurisdiction statewide has gone to the Division of Fire Safety. We still coordinate with them for unsafe conditions and rental inspections in the Planning and Zoning Department through our health officer. If there's certain communities that do have a local code enforcement section. Something like that would take additional town resources. But if you want to see more direction there,
I just
we could
thought
talk
in the
further about it.
2019 plan, one of the actions was to, assure that these rental properties, were inspected. And I also thought that one of the actions was in the 2019 plan to look at the weatherization, the efficiency, makeup of our housing, because it sounds like that would be an important focus. I don't know where the funding's going to come from, but if there are grants or programs where we could possibly apply to weatherize and update some of our older housing stock, I think that would be a really good action.
So you'd like to see those actions
I'm just
remain
thinking,
in the 2027 plan?
Yeah,
Yeah, and there's some state, if you own a building, you can apply to the state
Yeah.
and get some grants to work in your buildings. There's restrictions on them, but you can do that on a state level.
Yeah.
Which gives people an opportunity.
with the fire safety, I don't know if that just includes fire alarms, making sure the fire alarms are operational and, safety. If it's a safety issue, I think it should be a shall, instead of a should.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we will, I'll jot down some notes. You're actually getting into, I think, something that I'm looking for feedback on from all commissioners, and that is, I've put a checklist in front of you. This might have been circulated to you before in Excel, but you have a copy in front of you. And, kind of like Sarita's going through here, while we could assess whether or not something's been done or not, it would be helpful to know from your perspectives what should remain in the plan, what you want to see changed. Some things are just going to need to change no matter what. For example, Sarita, one of the items references the building inspector, which likely references the building and code program that we previously had in Colchester. We might just need to modify the language to reflect what the actual code requirements are in Colchester nowadays. We still do have a building inspector position. It's just a different scope. So I've jotted down notes here that you support kind of continuing those in 2027.
I would just like, again, to hear from the rest of the members, like shall and should are big differences to me in language. And I feel like shall gets things done. It's something that we want done, we think is really a high priority. And should, there's a little bit more wiggle room about, getting it done. So just, I think we should kind of think about where do we want shalls.
Yeah, and I think staff's perspective on the verbs, we are very much, I'm very in the camp of shall. There are certain times where should's more appropriate.
Right.
But if you would like to see something done, or you don't want that much wiggle room on the outcome, shall will get you in that direction. And one thing I do want to pull up, because Sarita, you mentioned this to me outside this meeting, but I do have a copy of the future land use map in the 2019 plan here. A number of the policies and actions reference where growth should continue or happen. Obviously, this map we're going to have a larger conversation about. But as a reference point, for example, policy, I believe number 3 infill residential development should continue within the suburban residential planning area. Suburban residential is anything with the orange sort of hatched design here, and really it's just, scattered around town where you see a lot of existing residential development, semi-dense. Any thoughts on, kind of in light of this larger goal, changes to that statement given, what you've seen built around town and what you understand to be in these areas? And if you'd like, I have a different map that we can see what's under these areas as well.
Where are you at? I'm lost on you.
He was referring to the number 3 on the policy.
Right here.
Yeah.
Down
And
in
he's
foot.
saying what's crosshatched in orange is this suburban residential planning.
Gotcha. I think we're pushing, some of these developments are going to be pushed beyond their physical capabilities. I think our infill is starting to be, we're starting to go a little bit beyond what some of these original developments were for. And then when you start crowding people in, already we have complaints about kids on their little scooters, I get it. But you put that in and then you put a bunch of new units in where a place is basically built out. I'm not seeing a quality of life going up. That's my opinion on that. So I don't know how to, there's things the state's already done that we can't stop an ADU. So I don't know if, without looking at every neighborhood closely, if I would encourage more growth in some of these neighborhoods. Some are built right out to the edge of where soils will, allow much more than what we've done.
Yeah, one quick thing I can do here, just because I mentioned it, so. Ooh, don't look at that. That's the wrong thing. So we do have a GIS map with the future land use layer on it. Could be useful to look at just to clarify where some of these areas are. So suburban residential, Severance Road, kind of looking at some of these areas here. The parcel lines appear to be kind of the same color, which is not very helpful. Generally, in this area of town, infill in this area generally looks like an ADU. It might look like converting a single unit to a duplex. So not significant options in terms of, doing one thing to meet the regional housing target. Largest proposal was actually off of Bellwood Ave, Barnabas Court.
Yep.
But, that area over here, generally, there's some mapped wetlands. So
Where they're building now is a good example. If you ask me, you have a little neighborhood now. You've built an offshoot out of it. You have a bunch of units going in, and they're going to come right out that road that was never designed for the extra. But because we're all crazy about putting in more houses anywhere, that neighborhood's going to change. Just is. Now you have a different group of style of people, and they have to meld in with that style neighborhood. I find it a different use for a neighborhood that's been around for 60 years, probably.
Sure. And there's a couple other, there's some undeveloped areas in these, suburban residential future land use areas, but it's primarily, there's definitely some PUD associated land, HOA land, that it's not necessarily like, oh, you could just put that Barnabas Court development on that piece of property. It's not that clear that that would be an option.
Right.
Yeah, a couple other areas identified, but generally, again, like the North Harbor neighborhood, pretty built out at this point. Any other And you know, you don't have to necessarily, we're going to get feedback through the land use planning
Yeah.
discussions as well.
Sure.
But just reacting to the housing goal, also, you know, village planning areas may be suited to additional residential opportunities, or they might not. So there's a caveat in there.
The village planning areas that you're talking about the ones that the Regional Planning Commission.
No.
No.
So this
Our own.
was the town ones.
Okay.
So looking at the town's future land use map,
Okay.
those are, I believe they're kind of the brick colored ones, which, I mean, it's kind of actually easier to look at on here. And also this is interesting symbology. I'll just note that that is very similar to how we depict commercial areas in the zoning.
Yeah.
So just a note that it's a little confusing at times, but you're going to see that as mainly the village, Inner Bay along West Lakeshore Drive, LS1, LS2 districts, down Prim Road, and also you've got kind of the Fort and Route 15 area as well. Exit 17 also is in this village area. One quick note, similar to how that's written, those areas are all very different and have different capacities for growth. For example, the Fort has sewer, not a lot of capacity right now. It'll likely be resolved, but Exit 17, not a lot happening there. Could be a discussion point. And also one thing I will note that RPC I'm in favor of is you've got Camp Johnson as a village planning area, but it's a federal property. I mean, you could look long range and say, well, is the federal government going to own it forever? But at the same time, I would hate to lump in a future land use goal to that land area because it looks really inspiring, but it's nothing the town has control over. So pulling that out to a different land use area might be something to consider. But any thoughts on housing in those areas?
I'm just, I think I agree with Rich about being really intentional about trying to maintain, and I know I don't mean it to be offensive at all, but the character of Colchester. And what I'm wondering is, are there alternatives, like at Severance Corners? Let's just say, could you go higher and still meet the building, goals? Is there other areas where we wouldn't need to have infill or duplexes, but we could meet our building goal and still maintain the essence of Colchester?
Yeah, just to clarify, I don't think the question on the table, we don't want you to get into like zoning items necessarily, right?
Mhm.
Like keeping an eye out for, how will this actually be pursued? Do we want to see increased development at Severance Corners? That can be one aspect of it for sure. If that looks like additional heights, that could be part of that for sure. But I think that sort of discussion,
Is another discussion.
keep it in mind, but I think, that would inform a zoning update down the line. Yeah, right now, you're looking at 5 or 6 stories being a maximum building height. I don't know that anything actually is that height out there currently, but that's sort of your maximum right now. We will have to, of course, update that we no longer have the building code program as it existed, nor the on-site wastewater program. So we'll remove that.
So where are you off now?
That's policy 5.
So I don't have numbers, or do we just?
They,
Oh.
I'm just counting
Just
down.
counting.
We can add numbers the next time you go through this.
So when you're talking about policies, then you count down 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to clarify, thank
I
you.
was kind of popcorning between 2 and
Yeah.
3
And
there,
both they
but
are numbered.
Yeah,
Not in his.
yeah, but,
we will get numbers on them. It's a very easy Excel thing to do.
So the town doesn't have a building code program anymore.
So we updated the text to reflect this, but we have certain building code requirements that are enforced. So egress windows for below grade finished space, solar panel setbacks, things like that. There's no overall code that the town is enforcing as they previously were.
Okay.
Any questions I can answer? We can zoom in if you want.
Could you just zoom in at the top, up by the 17, exit 17?
Oh no. Oh my gosh. What is going on here? There we go.
So bad at direction. I can't find my place.
So generally it looks like Route 2 is in blue here. North of the road, but south of Jasper Mine Road is village mixed use.
Okay.
North of Jasper Mine Road is suburban residential. And then this area, which is generally aligns with general development 4 as a zoning district, is village mixed use.
Okay. There I am. There I am. Thank you.
In terms of other policies, are there anything else commissioners want to touch on here? Especially given, so the data is generally trending towards housing being more expensive. Supply not necessarily keeping up with the current demand. And regional housing targets needing, to at least continue what's currently happening in Colchester at a slightly increased rate. I will note, from the planning perspective as a professional, looking at the land available in Colchester, it's not, I don't think there's land available to have another 1970s suburban, expansion. Unless, for example, you rezoned all of the northeast quadrant in Clay Point, and all of those natural resource concerns were not concerns. Not that you would like to do that from a smart growth perspective, but achieving 68 units per year is, in those final years going to be pretty dense development somewhere to keep Colchester's character across town.
so just to get back to the should and shalls,
Mhm.
a lot of these are shoulds. It concerns me just that we could go 7 years and really not have to do any of this, not be accountable or, for things that we and the community thinks is, a shall. This needs to happen. And it may not be a lot, but I do think that there will be instances where there will be things will need to get done in the next 6 years.
Mhm.
in order, I think, to keep Colchester affordable and taxes reasonable.
Sure. I mean, we can go through and make some track changes, edits to this to sort of add in some of that firmer language if that's something the commission would like us to do.
I don't necessarily want to do it now because I think it will help to have the big picture,
Of course.
but maybe towards the end, you know, but just be thinking, like, should this be something that we really, this is a priority that we want to have done?
In the action section, are there any discussion points there? We'll note in the first one, growth center designation is likely going to be replaced by the regional future land use map. So that'll be reworded, but it seems like Severance Corners is generally where housing growth should continue.
Yeah, as long as the growth center keeps on track with commercial and residential. There's no doubt, whether they like it or not. I mean, I know the developers have hollered at us before, but it is what it is. We have to, and it's supposed to be 20%. They have to be aggressive. They'll have to be. Times are changing because they find new ways to make it happen.
Mhm.
But you do not have to me anyways, a quality of life without some commercial mixed in there. Could be your coffee shop. People are walking all the time. As it grows, the building should accommodate that.
Mhm.
And we should make sure we stay on track with. We want residential, but we want the commercial mix to stay.
I think we'll have a pretty, hopefully at the next meeting, we'll have a pretty focused discussion on that as we talk about the growth areas in Colchester.
Yep.
That being one of them. One other question here is, is there anything that you read here or you're not reading here that's sort of missing? Things that the town should do additionally. And I don't think there's a wrong answer here as an idea, as a brainstorm.
Yeah.
But our goal would be to research any of those sort of questions you have about what might be missing.
I didn't see anything there. Can I ask you a question about ADUs? Just, that's not in here, but if somebody owns multiple homes and they're not living in one of the homes that they own, are they still eligible to build an ADU in the home that they're not living in?
No. So state law allows accessory dwelling units. I believe they're on owner-occupied lots, which means that the owner would need to be in either of the dwelling units.
Okay.
And they're owner-occupied with a single unit dwelling. So there's sort of a narrow allowance
Yeah.
where an ADU can be permitted.
Okay. So, it's an easy thing to skirt around if you wanted to. Just move into the home for temporary, build an ADU, and then move back into the. It just seems like a silly.
Yeah, considering it's in state law,
I know.
I think,
Might have to work on that one.
Well, I think it's just a different animal. If you don't own the property, and when you own the property but you're not living there, then it becomes an income property. You build a unit next to it. It's a two-family unit now.
Yeah.
It's no longer a one-unit housing with an ADU for rent.
It's not
It's
like this is
different.
a person that owns it. They had a house
Yeah.
and they built a house on the adjoining property and then moved into the house and they wanted to build an ADU because the other house had more land on it. It just,
But it becomes a two-family then. That's
Yeah.
different regulations altogether.
yeah.
So generally, it's been handled as a zoning enforcement item.
Mhm.
We were able to resolve a couple of the attached ADUs under the requirement that we treat a single unit as a duplex. So they were able to kind of have unequal sized duplexes to kind of remove the zoning enforcement aspect of it. But yeah, that is a requirement currently. So it is, if someone wants to do a detached ADU and then they say they sell the property and it's just a different owner,
Yeah.
that could put a future owner who may live there for a little bit and move away at risk of being in violation of the development regulations.
Gotcha. It just struck me as, just didn't understand it, but thank you.
I like the universal design for occupancy during all stages of life. I was thinking of the word transitional kind of housing, where people could stay in place and transition, like, maybe have a bedroom and a bathroom on a first floor so that they wouldn't have to move if they lost mobility. I think the statistic is that 1 out of 3 Vermonters will be over 65. So, instead of having people to go to a nursing home, if they could, age in place and think about that in their 50s, but that kind of transitional, I think that's a new way of thinking about housing, of it being transitional, not that you're going to sell and buy another place. I mean, that's what I'm sensing about the future in terms of the cost of housing.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 aspects to that. I think you've got one of them for sure of, if people not forcing people to move because they can no longer live in their home. But also I think, we'll kind of get to some of the demographics later, but of course, Vermont is aging.
Mm-hmm.
And households are getting smaller. And as affordability concerns grow, having housing that people can downsize to where they have options, I think is also an important aspect as well. So we could likely tweak some language or add a secondary action for that, if that would be of interest. Totally draft. You guys will have the final say for sure. But
It doesn't look, from reading the housing, updated housing, it just doesn't look good in terms of housing being available, the needed housing being available at a price that people can afford. It just seemed every data set that I was looking at was just saying it's not going to meet this data set, it's not going to meet this criteria that you're going to need in 6 years or 10 years. So that, there wasn't an answer to it. It was just like, what is the solution to that problem? Because that's a concern. So I just want to be thinking about that.
definitely.
Some of it's kind of out of our hands. I mean, cost of construction is what's driving the cost of affordable housing out of the market,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what we say.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's
subsidies, that's always what it comes down to.
Yeah, no, that's the reason they gave that people can't afford housing, is the cost of, of the cost of building.
correct. There's only so many levers the town can pull to intervene in this issue.
Right, no.
There's 2 buckets of affordable housing. There's capital A affordable that we say, and lowercase a affordable housing. There's been some significant efforts in the formal affordable housing projects. There's a project over on Stewart Avenue in the Sunderland Farms quadrant of the growth center, 36 units. And those include like some 2-bedroom, I think even a couple 3-bedroom units in there as well. Which in the growth center, there's not very many of.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of a historic preservation, adaptive reuse in the fort. There's a 65 units of affordable housing there that was developed by Evernorth and Champlain Housing Trust. These are both since 2019 town plan. But in terms of the other, affordable housing that can be created, accessory dwelling units are definitely an option. Could be a rental income for a property owner. Converting a single unit to a duplex could be another one as well through renovation process, should you have the wastewater to meet that. But in terms of other ideas, I mean, there's definitely ways, I think, to look at the permitting process in terms of, there's some initiatives going on to reduce permitting barriers for certain housing designs. Pilot effort in a couple communities, so not much to report yet, but
You use the term, I've heard it used already out in the audience, workforce housing. Exactly, it's workforce housing.
yeah, I think I don't have a definition right in mind, but my understanding is that workforce housing is sort of like the missing middle, right? It's if you've, and I wish I could do more than just show you this, but you're looking at housing that the median workforce can afford. It's not necessarily going to come with the restrictions of affordable housing, where, for example, there's income limits for certain programs that Champlain Housing Trust offers. But once you pass that, and you're not quite able to really participate in a market that is accelerating pretty quickly in cost, there's a gap there. And I think workforce housing seems to be focused in that area. We'll get to it sort of in the economy chapter, but generally from what we're hearing, talking with the economic development department, housing is really being tied to economic opportunity in Colchester. Businesses needing to hire further away, having a hard time recruiting in the area. So there is a strong tie there that I don't think was there in 2019, but it's definitely a part of that conversation.
So, thinking on those lines, there really is minimal what we could do to consider forcing somebody to build workforce housing. Because basically, the average family income is $95,000, which is what we are. So to afford, and you have all the numbers that show how much a person or a family can afford per house.
Mm-hmm.
So we would say you can build 1,200 square foot house, which nobody builds, and limit it to a quarter acre lot, and we know it's going to cost you $450 a square foot, and that's what it'll take to build workforce housing, right? So, but, and I'm not putting you on the spot, because it's, Kathy O'Brien brought it up actually at one of the meetings a couple times, and I kept thinking, there's minimal we can do if developers are trying to get maximum out of a land and building, for us to say you have to build a 1,200 square foot or whatever it takes to fit the economic level of these people in that price point. Correct? Am I wrong?
You're not totally wrong, because you're correct that the regulations, are going to kind of set the floor or the ceiling of what kind of the box that you're allowed to do on a property. That being said, there are certain mechanisms that staff could research and possibly put in here. They may relate to like having density bonuses for projects that meet your goals. So if you want to see more affordable, and I'm using lowercase a there, more affordable housing development, could you offer through a planned unit development a density bonus for projects so that a developer could do something like 2 triplexes in an area where they might get a duplex, or 1 triplex, kind of looking at how can we allow someone to get more units that might need to be forced to be smaller. They might come with a deed restriction to remain at a certain price point for a number of years until the depreciation catches up, and that's just the price point they're at. Could be something to investigate. Right now, those are technically called like inclusionary zoning for the affordable housing aspect. other communities have examples of this that we could provide you.
And S328, if that gets signed into law, that mandates a lot of like modular housing, a lot of mobile units, and it really says you need to provide this housing for, lower income or mid-level income Vermonters. So that'll be interesting to see if that gets signed into law.
Yeah, I'm happy to bring you, some information once if that's
Right,
signed
if
into
it-
law.
If it is signed into law,
What the impact might be there.
great.
Any other items on housing that you want to touch on? I just understanding we have some other stuff to get to, and I
Sure.
want to make sure
But
we.
this is kind of ongoing, right? I mean, come back
Yeah.
as we go through it. Okay.
So we've got chapter drafts going. Kind of the overall approach here, I think we'll want to get those to you for feedback, and we'll kind of revisit topics at each meeting, I think, just to make sure we kind of are staying on track of items. We'll likely add to this a list based on what we've heard thus far related to like affordability, possibly some workforce housing. Might recommend some changes to verbs just to, maybe prioritize some items over others. But yeah, if there's feedback coming through.
Well, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I didn't have much time to even look at this.
Sure.
It came out on Friday, and I was a little overwhelmed with everything.
Yep.
I
It's a
haven't
lot.
digested all of this.
Sure. Well, we can revisit
So I
it
just
at
wanna
a.
make sure that, is everybody else feeling the same? way?
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of time
Yeah,
either.
it was a lot, I mean,
Yeah.
to absorb and think about.
So we can,
Yeah.
understanding that, we can add it to the next meeting as well. So these will stay in your packet. And we can have revisit this discussion and kind of keep an ongoing sort of updated draft in your folders. Is there anything that would work better?
I don't know.
More
No.
time ideally.
No,
But-
this is,
I think if we had maybe even a week prior
Okay.
with this information, it'd be a lot easier to kind of fit it into scheduling and workloads and all that.
but the format is great. I-
Yeah,
Yeah, it
the
is.
format's
Yeah.
fine.
Very
It's-
helpful.
Yep.
Do you all find that we're always going to provide you a red line version of the document.
No, I like the red line.
Red line's good. Okay.
Yep.
Likely we'll just do red line going forward, but I didn't know if the clean version would be easier to read.
No,
I agree on that.
I don't want to have for the changes.
Okay. Got it. Okay, so yeah, we'll make a note. We can provide this, packet when it's got draft text a week in advance and send out an email just to make sure that everyone has time to sit with the information a little more, especially since the meeting's only at, one time per month. So, feedback won't come for another month at this point. So,
And I'm sure you're not busy at all, Zach, so.
plenty of time. But to be honest with you, I've told the development review board this as well. The work will get done. If I know it works for you all, I will meet that timeline. So we'll get it done. So one quick thing on housing, just while we're still here for 1 second. Do just want to note, I think you all had talked about the regional future land use map, and we're going to be talking about this as we talk about neighborhoods and the Colchester future land use map. I just want to note that since they did adopt their regional plan, this map is the one that is adopted. It's not approved by the land use review board yet, but it is public, and this is sort of the direction they want to go. Since they came to you and met, the main change that the land use review board wanted to see was around the West Lake Shore Drive corridor from Prim Road to the intersection of Bayside Park. that has gone from what was, I believe, 2 smaller nodes of village center, broken up by village area, to all village center. Now, before alarm bells start really going off, they did justify that by kind of aligning it with the village mixed use area in the 2019 plan. So it was partially informed. It's not like including all of, I believe, the Hazlet parcel. But just to note that that is the change. So if there's, I mean, not much we can do about this map at this point. But, you know, as we have conversations about housing and neighborhoods, just knowing that the Colchester future land use map is going to need to be in general compliance with this map, just keep that in mind.
I just want to say that I think that area with, I think transportation, when we talk about, intersects heavily in that area.
Mhm.
Because east and west Lakeshore Drive, I mean, I just think on East Lakeshore Drive, I don't know, I wasn't able to make that meeting, you know, where people got the scoping, but I think traffic on that road is becoming unbearable for those people who live there. And and again, I think the same is true on West Lakeshore Drive. So I just think we're going to have to intersect the housing and development in that particular area with looking at what the transportation, how can we ease or figure out a solution to the transportation in that area. Sure.
Yeah, definitely something to revisit, I think, when we're having the transportation discussion in October.
Yeah.
One note about, just to clarify, I think the discussion at the select board was about a scoping study for sidewalk on a portion
Oh, okay.
of East Lakeshore Drive. And, currently, the town does have an official map that does include future improvements that developers need to plan for, and they're generally based on where improvements will be in the next couple of years. Last update to that was in 2017, so something to keep in mind as a mechanism for possibly making that change in the future.
Can I just ask, is there a sidewalk in the plan for East Lakeshore Drive? I think it's up to South Cove or whatever. I don't think it does the whole road, which I think it should, but
Yeah, I can
I
take
don't want to take up a lot more time, so we can talk about this later.
I don't think there is on that side, is there?
There's
In the
none.
planning, yeah.
I know there's the rec path, but
Yeah, I can take a look into that and confirm that for
thank you.
Because we did talk about that recently, so. Okay. All right. So, back to the presentation. Quick note, moving to the demographics chapter, and I'll just note that since the timeline was short here, I'm not going to necessarily now wait to hear from you on these items, but I will just kind of flag the high priority items here. So in the draft that you received, we updated the data mostly. One correction just from a previous meeting, and something we looked a little more into, is that nothing happened in 2017 that caused Colchester residents to die at a higher rate that we've kept other than the respite house opening. So that sort of messed with the vital statistics in town to cause a jump from 169 deaths to 354.
They weren't necessarily residents until they were put into the respite house.
Correct.
Because they can been all over Chittenden County or all over Vermont coming
They
They're
are
still
coming to
attributed to
that.
us?
Yes, and they are attributed to us.
Wow.
So we flagged that in the text
Okay,
to clarify the data.
that's funny.
Likely
I mean,
nothing
not
you
funny.
need to do. But hopefully that makes you a little calmer that, we almost had 500 deaths in fiscal year 2020.
Oh, wow.
We had over 500 deaths in fiscal year 2025.
Should be lots of housing.
So,
Oh, that's awful that we're laughing.
but that being said,
No, but it wasn't.
that being said,
That's White House.
the general demographic trends are that Colchester's getting older,
Mhm.
state's getting older, and that does affect many aspects of the town. Is there anything, just from a demographics perspective, we're likely going to make sure there's some newer requirements for engagement, public engagement, that will likely update this section with, just to make sure that the public engagement portions do align with the representation in Colchester. One note for you, looking at some of the demographic data from your first survey, the general survey respondents were people who owned their own single family home, relatively good age distribution, given that wasn't all people who were 65 plus, which was good. But generally, people who identify as white. So, thinking about future public engagement, staff will also be thinking about how we can sort of engage across a wider spectrum here. People who rent, various demographic backgrounds. So we'll keep that in mind. You might see some more text here. Any comments or questions for me on that chapter?
Need more time.
Of course.
Yeah.
And you will get to look at it, don't worry. But
Don't have much to respond yet.
This is where it says to the extent possible, the town should encourage, that's where we're at right now. The town should encourage that important archaeological sites. Is that what we're discussing now?
Oh.
Sorry.
Where are you, Rita?
That's be true.
Yeah, so
It's like cultural, it was a cultural.
correct. Generally, there's a couple different times you could proactively undertake like an archaeological study.
No,
Or
I
it
was
could
just saying,
be-
but that's where we're talking about, this section.
Yes, it says who
Okay.
we are at the top there,
Okay.
in very small text.
So I just want to say that, just my experience in the legislature sometimes is people get concerned that they weren't involved in the discussion of an issue when it was advertised and there was outreach. And I just, I guess I would like to really do our best, and I'd be glad to help out to go to communities or, that are somewhat underrepresented and just let them know about this opportunity. So it isn't like we didn't make a real good effort to engage them and bring their voices to this conversation.
Definitely.
I forgot to post on, I'm trying to keep up with this and post something on Front Page Forum just about what we're discussing on that. Try to get people to come in. We actually handed out, we made some little cards when we were getting our signatures to try to get people, and we had a little list, and it's sad that we don't get people to come in here, especially during this particular time.
And I do want to put a pin in that, just because we will, I think, want to revisit this
Okay.
when we talk about next item on the agenda 4B, planning public engagement for the land use chapter.
Okay.
Just because I do have some ideas about that. I'm hopeful we can, kind of stir up some engagement
Oh, good.
Great.
in a good way. So,
And just if there's organizations in Colchester, even outside of Colchester, because, that voice is so smaller than in a, bigger urban setting. It might not, the way people might feel that live outside of Colchester might not, might have the same perspective, help us understand, what they're thinking, what their thoughts are. So that would be helpful.
and one thing, Rebecca, now that you have this kind of printed out for these chapters, I think what would be helpful is if you mark these up and turn these back into staff whenever works. I think we'll of course taking some notes, we'll make some red line edits, try to get things going in a direction you want to see it. But any feedback you have on these, write it down, give it to us.
Okay.
Serving Colchester chapter. Generally,
Can you do this as an Excel or something, so it's easier to fill it in, or,
it is Excel. Yeah, I can send it to you all.
Okay.
All right. Now the only thing is I can't make it like a shared document,
That's fine.
just because
It's-
open
it's
meeting law.
something that I can open and add notes and
Yep.
send it in.
Okay, we will do that. Luckily, it's already in Excel, so good to go. You did get a copy of an partially updated Serving Colchester chapter that relates to town services. We'll make sure to get this one fully updated to you, but updated to date. One item that I do want to give you an option to do as well. The town did undertake a planning process that has since expired, right? It was 2012 to 2022 is the Heritage Project. I have a copy of it here as well. It was very focused on a couple things that the town actually could do. And written in 2012, some of it the town has done. Some of it the town likely cannot any longer do. And some of it may still be relevant. Or it might not be relevant. So kind of going through this process, and I can sort of circulate this as well, but governance is a large aspect of that plan. So staff would encourage you to also evaluate the goals and strategies and actions that were identified in that plan. If there's anything worth integrating here that you see as continuing, I think it makes sense to include. But it's also a time to say, hey, this was completed, or hey, this isn't really something you want to pursue anymore. Generally, so I did put some text on the slides. It looks very small down there. So, and I don't know if anyone's glasses are good. My contacts aren't really getting me over there.
No, definitely, these are for short
And
distance.
the next slide is even worse. But generally, I'll circulate these so you can have some time with them, just because it's important to kind of read them and just consider, what's part of this. Because, for example, there were discussions about charter review and making appropriate changes in 2 phases. Were these conducted? Was this completed? That's something staff can look into there.
So this is still in the
Heritage Project, yes.
Okay.
So, we can look, of course, to see if those charter changes happened. There's discussion about consolidation of Colchester's fire and water sewer districts and their relationship to town of Colchester government. Some progress has been made on that. Fire districts were consolidated into one department, so you can check half of that box. Water and sewer districts, you heard it a little bit here tonight, but there might be some work to do there. There are still separate and distinct water districts in Colchester. So something to think about. And then regionalization of essential services. That was written in 2012, and maybe that is still salient today. So
There's a study committee.
Yep.
now
So-
on regionalization.
Well, you've been talking about that for a long time.
So could be something that stays in the plan. But again, it's a town plan, not a regional plan. This slide's going to require a bit of narration from me. But generally, this is about increasing engagement from people in Colchester. And I think it's right on, Sarita, with what you were saying there. But some of the aspects I think would need to be, maybe summarized a bit. For example, I don't think it's the planning commission's position to be, recruiting candidates for elected office.
Although I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah. Town leaders and department heads develop and maintain an up-to-date, vibrant communications approach with Colchester youth, businesses, and citizens using both electronic and legacy media. Public meetings.
Right down.
I'm just reading the recommended actions here. Sorry.
There you go.
Okay.
So these items, many of the items are likely going to be something that you agree with, but some of them might need to be tweaked or modified or.
Well, it's interesting because we did take the Heritage Project when we did the 2019 town plan.
And
So we're doing it
there are definitely aspects of the plan, of the project in the 2019 town plan. My understanding is that it was partially integrated, and there was a request to sort of, from the select board, to just revisit that.
Okay.
Is there an economic development advisory committee? Because that would be a really good thing to have, I think.
What was the answer to that one?
See that?
Yes? We still
I
have
did
that?
not. I do not believe so.
No.
But we can-
CDC, CCD. Right.
CCDC, Colchester Community Development
There you
Corporation.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
they were
their
talking about it. It still
committee.
sort of exists.
Hmm.
They still have a bank account, but they're very low key, and I don't quite get what they do anymore.
Yeah.
They talked for 2 seconds to let us know that it wasn't any of our business. That's what it sounded like. So I get that.
So
So we have this kind of intermingled in the 19th.
yes, and I think generally, there's aspects of this that you likely want to, as a Colchester resident, you would probably like to see the town continue. Integration of the town government into, to be visible and transparent is likely something that you want to have continue.
Right. Yeah, that's the basics. I get it.
And, but some of the actual actions related to it,
Yeah.
I think, in terms of a town plan and certain levers you can pull,
Yeah.
they might be best left to implementation by the town staff, right? For
Right.
those items.
I mean, something as simple as creating now for Colchester High School Outstanding Civic Student Award is beyond us. That would be a select board thing.
Yeah, and the Rotary does that too.
Yeah.
The Rotary does that, and it's a Colchester Rotary.
Yep.
They recognize a high school student from Milton and I think Colchester.
I think most of this is already ongoing or not able to be done.
Yep.
So,
So it seems like generally, we'll look to maintain the aspects that are in the 2019 town plan.
yeah.
We'll take a quick look to see if there's anything else that maybe is more salient now. But we'll keep it in mind.
That's, I'm
And-
on board with that.
Yep, and we will, I think you'll see much of that integration into the policies and actions, how those end up. So we'll take a look there. But like I said, this item will be in Excel, and we'll circulate that for you so you can keep an eye on it. In terms of cultivating Colchester, this was one of your more recent meetings. I believe it's your most recent meeting. Education and Parks and Recreation. And there was some text drafted in collaboration with the school district that was provided for you. Again, short notice. Don't expect you to have read all of it. But perhaps something that would be useful kind of before we get into the goals and actions was, thinking back on your last meeting, was there anything that stood out to you from either of the presentations that surprised you, or you were happy to see, not happy to see?
I liked hearing that they were going to make Bayside more accessible. I can't even envision what that means, but I mean, it's always seemed like such a luggish kind of place to go. You kind of cross the street and walk down. It just seemed like it could be something else.
Well, when they put the rotary in, it's gonna be something else. That's for sure.
Talk about inaccessible. It's gonna be like, I don't know. We're on
That
Like it-
also was a recommendation from the past plan, was to make public access to the lake, to make it more accessible, to provide better access for the public to the bay.
Yep.
To the lake.
And then we decided to put a rotary in. We're gonna have two now. I'm not a fan of rotaries. I've been through too many of those.
Where's the second one? Still at Route 7? No.
No, they want to put one up by Clay Point. Might not be 20 years from now, but yes, we're just approved it because of the accident was up there. And that's their reaction, is to put up, change the.
Well, that needed something done for
Yeah.
sure, but
We did have a left turn put in and changed, so you didn't have to cross over again. But
Yeah,
whatever, that's on our department, I guess. Onward.
but
We can talk more about that in transportation.
Yeah, exactly. Right, we're on.
and we do have, doesn't the town have land along East Lakeshore Drive? Isn't there like a little staircase that goes down that's public access?
There is a town-owned parcel near the. It's across from the recreation center property. Is that what you're referring
I
to?
think so. I always am looking for it because.
It's very steep,
it's
so I
very
don't know that there's
steep.
stairs on it.
Wasn't
But
there a land swap or something? Did I hear that?
I'm not sure.
Elegant slope to that land?
It had to do, God, what was it? Somehow, the property that the town owns, there was a provision in it. And they wanted to do some more land development. In order to do that, they had to do a land swap for that area down there. It's a
Interesting.
little corner of that area. I'm trying to remember who told me that.
huh.
I'm gonna have to figure that one out. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Doesn't ring any bells to me
Oh, it does
at this
to me.
time.
I'm wondering if it was, the only thing I can think of is I was talking to Aaron. Maybe that's where I heard it from.
Yeah.
But yeah, some little land swap going on there.
So accessibility at Bayside stood out. Anything from the education presentation?
I think amenities too, along West Lakeshore Drive. I mean, again, that's what the Heritage report said in terms of a tourism destination, but again, that ties into transportation. Because the last thing I want to do is add more traffic to that road. But, I think this whole thing for me that I'm hearing is this connectivity, this wanting to, have opportunities to meet up with people in the community. And, if you have little restaurants or coffee shops or something, that it makes that happen. You're standing in line, you start talking to someone, and that whole thing of connectivity, I think is an overarching theme for me in terms of this town plan, is how do we provide more opportunities for people, the citizens, to connect through the parks and rec and the amenities. I mean, I agree with what you're saying
Yeah.
about Basil.
And the education, yes, I was actually surprised because I know Colchester is one of the only towns in the state of Vermont that actually is growing kids. Like, that's a big deal.
And now with the new rec center, it's gonna even grow more.
I know. I think it's awesome.
Well, don't forget about the demographics chapter.
Okay, well, I'm trying to like flip that a little bit.
So, okay. Good there. Yeah, so, just identify a couple things here. Heritage Project, Heritage Project really focused, there was a strong focus on combining school and town resources. Given the current, landscape on education finance, the school district has provided in the draft language a modification that the resources that are currently combined should remain combined, rather than pursuing new ones. For example, I believe the town and school district sort of combine their salt purchasing. It ends up creating a bulk purchase that I think results in a lower price for both parties. Town and school have requested for that to continue. Could be great for that to continue. And also sharing the maintenance facility next door, for example. Those represent some objectives that I think have been met thus far.
That's the CISA, the CISA units, they'll be doing that
Yeah.
a lot. I don't know if they can do it with municipalities. The CISA, that's in the education transformation, is these units that can combine services to save money, with staffing, with resources, with bulk items, but I'm not sure if that's just school to school within schools, in an area, or I don't think it's municipalities.
I think it's just schools.
Yeah. I think it is just schools. As a cost saving.
Yeah, we can
efficiency.
confirm.
Yeah.
We'll have some updated text as well from Parks and Rec as well, hopefully in the next draft. Policies and actions will be available, of course, for the Excel, should you wish to mark them up. Moving on to our economy. So following up on the meeting that happened right before, I believe, your first meeting in May, was focused on the economy. Some updated information was provided to you at that meeting related to economic numbers. Generally, we updated the text or the figures and data to include those. Generally, you're seeing consistency, but there's been a slight. Well, let me flip to the right figure here, and I will clarify exactly what I'm about to say. Hold on one second. Okay. So, looking at employment by sector over time, generally we're looking at employment sectors in Colchester. Where are people working? Who are the employers? Items like that. Natural resources and mining, as well as manufacturing, were two sectors where in 2000 and 2010 there was data, and in 2017 and 2025 there is not. Now, that is not to say that those have disappeared, because there happens to be a very large mining operation in Colchester that is doing quite well. So keep that in mind. and there are manufacturers as well. The note is that generally, when the data set is much smaller, there's certain confidentiality issues. So to ensure that people aren't providing data on exactly the median wage that's being provided at the one mining operation in the town, that information's not available. So just keep in mind that it looks like our natural resources and mining sector has been wiped out. I don't believe it has, but just to clarify the data there.
So so this data's gonna go in the new town plan?
Yes.
So can you quantify that as a sub-note to that data that,
Yes, we'll add it as like a
Okay.
footnote, just about
okay.
that it's not a trend that is cause for alarm necessarily. Manufacturing, I mean, there is a decrease over the years to the point that, we might want to clarify that as well. But generally, all sectors, just so we're on the same page here,
Where are we? I'm just sorry.
this is the
town of
second
Col-
graphic in the economy chapter.
Does it start with the town of Colchester encourages sustainable?
Yes, that is
Okay.
the,
And then how many down?
well, so I'm
He's
in
looking.
the draft text, which might be on your iPad,
Okay.
but I'll just
Which is
narrate
over
for
right
you generally that
Okay.
I'm good.
all sectors generally are at the same or declining except for professional and business services and local government. So just to clarify for you, generally not seeing large economic growth in a certain area.
I thought it was interesting that business services and technical services are office-related businesses. Yeah, we have people complaining they can't fill an office space, so, yeah, we're growing in that area.
Yeah, I mean, it's not astounding growth,
No, I get it.
but it
it's
is some, it's
exciting.
not,
Yeah.
total,
Yeah,
a shrinking economy,
Yeah.
Dwindling. It's
Does that include home businesses in that?
I'd have to double check that. I don't know that smaller home businesses would be able to get into this because they wouldn't be like reporting wages if they're just like they don't have employees. But
Yeah, as Rich said, though, we have so many vacant properties. Where's this growth happening?
new buildings.
I know, but what buildings?
Rebuilt
Is-
and new offices, I don't know, it's interesting.
yeah, we can look more at that code as well just to figure
Yeah,
out
that's
what's
interesting.
included. Yeah, I mean, seeing shrinking numbers elsewhere and an increase in one, it's not necessarily they may occupy similar buildings and areas. So we can look a little more into it though.
Would it make sense to have the last economic development report on Colchester I read was in 2018. I mean, would it make sense to have another economic development report done? I know there are grants for it. And it didn't look at Colchester, it looked at the Burlington region. And just not, kind of just saying that people aren't gonna come to businesses aren't gonna come to Colchester. They're gonna come, if they're gonna come, they're gonna come to the Burlington region, and it depends what that region offers them in terms of either subsidies or, less regulations. And I feel like it's an area that's, at least for me, I'm very not competent, I don't think, to be making decisions about businesses and what Colchester needs,
Sure.
to attract and maintain businesses.
Yeah, and we that could be on one hand something to include as an action, something to pursue and as a follow up to this plan.
Mm-hmm.
I will note, and we updated the text to include this, but Chittenden County previously had a comprehensive economic development plan, CEDS. They updated that in partnership with 3 other regions. So there's a larger region now that goes from Washington County, Chittenden County, then Addison down to Rutland, West Central Vermont, comprehensive economic development strategy. That's the most recent update to one of those plans, but it's, it's a much larger area than just Chittenden County. And, I'd be hesitant to say that you should pursue that as just satisfying that. Could be something to look into closer. One other item on this that I will note for you is related to commuting, because this wasn't in the draft chapter, but something just to look at. Generally, there's been about a little over 7,500 people coming to Colchester to work, 7,300 leaving Colchester for work, who live here leaving, and then only 1,300 are staying in Colchester to both live and work. These numbers are very consistent with 2018, 2019. So there's been no large changes prior to the pandemic versus after. But something to note, you've got people coming in and people leaving. When we're talking about where Colchester residents are heading, they're heading mainly to Burlington. Second, South Burlington. Third, I believe, is Essex. And then Williston, Milton. The Colchester number is also kind of mingled in there with the 1,300. So just clarifying that. And then where are Colchester employees coming from? Primarily Essex, also Milton, and then a bit, secondarily Burlington, South Burlington, St. Albans as well. So thinking about how the economy is linked to housing, we talked about as well, workforce housing opportunities, but also how is it linked to transportation? Are there ways, is it something that is first desirable for the commission to consider people living and working in Colchester? Alternatively, if that's not going to be the case immediately, that everyone in Colchester is going to work in Colchester, where are people coming from? Where are people going? Where are the primary corridors we should be looking at for improvements? So not something that's necessarily going to make it into the economy chapter, but it is something that I think you should keep in mind as we get into these other chapters. And all that data is provided from Census through a service called On the Map. So it's 2023 data, so post-pandemic, but not that recent.
It's pretty interesting,
It is.
very interesting.
Was that included in our packet?
No, it wasn't. That was a surprise. That's to get people to come to the meeting.
I like it.
No, I'd like to look at them again sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can put the slideshow in the
Okay,
packet as well. I was
that'd be
working on
great.
it a bit today, but put that in there. And yeah, one item, in the Heritage Project, a lot of these items were actually included in your, the general gist is in the 2019 plan. Looking at, again, the Colchester Economic Development Advisory Committee, CCDC there. There's some items here that, as we get into the actions are just not going to be applicable anymore, like implement TIF at Severance Corners to further the development of the growth center. I believe the town did try to implement that briefly, but did not pursue it further. Additionally, there's some other funding programs available, but
Chip.
there is, but it's project-based, not land-based. So, could be something to think about, but of course the landscape changes, right? So some aspects here may be part of this, but some of them have already been completed. Like, for example, branding for Colchester, that's been completed, and it's heavily integrated with the Colchester Town Plan 2019.
What about the town's commercial tax base? Has that been increasing or decreasing?
I could look into that a bit closer. In terms of tax base, it's not something that I immediately
Yeah.
assess, but we could take a look.
I'd be curious.
Very interesting.
We do have a lot of in Colchester. dentist. I went looking for a new
You do?
dentist. We have a lot of dentists in Colchester.
Everybody has such a nice smile.
I'll let you know after September.
I'm in the market for one.
Yeah, I'm trying Bristol.
Oh, Bristol.
Yeah. No, Bristol, that's the name of the
Oh.
dentist's office.
Yeah.
Just checked, it doesn't look like they are in the professional and business services. They're
They're
likely in
not.
health
Oh.
services. Not a sector that is seeing growth.
Okay.
Yeah, and so for example, a couple items here. Expand plans for form-based zoning. Form-based zoning has been adopted. You guys think about changes to it even. So let's, maybe alter that a bit. Develop infrastructure required at exit 16, I-89 to allow further commercial development. Kind of looking at the landscape in 2012, we might have to take a look to see what was needed then. Has it been achieved?
Right.
That's a fair bit of time away.
Build a double diamond, get cars in and out.
Yep.
People will be happier to go to work.
So before moving on here, any thoughts about, just before we move on, any thoughts on this here? Anything standing out? No? Okay.
Need time.
And then just one note on, so Heritage Project included a section on tourism and recreation. Not putting this in the recreation chapter just because it wasn't really related to exactly what the town was providing, but rather how creating like a tourism recreation economy. So it's in the economy chapter here, where we're kind of noting this. Objective being establish Colchester as a premier destination recreation area. That carried over pretty clearly into the 2019 town plan. But I think a question is, given how things have unfolded, of course now there's sewer being provided to the area to address the existing flows of the area, not necessarily a growth proposal. And also, there's been actually some development in the LS1 and 2 districts. I think it could be a time, not necessarily right now, but to think about that direction. Do you want to continue that into the future?
What,
Or do you
tourism?
want to establishing Colchester as a premier destination recreation area?
Okay.
Yes.
That'd be, yeah,
So-
a big
I
draw.
mean, is there any way to put that out to the community? To say, in the Heritage Project, this is what the community said. We're wondering, what your thoughts are on this. Because that seems like a huge community decision.
It would
What
be a
do you think?
smaller project than one might expect.
Yeah.
I feel like the Mount Spade's only this big. This is always amazing to me. I mean, it's only this big, and we're going to turn it into this massive tourist Lake George something. And we're
No,
we
no.
don't have the road, we have the
Don't do it.
infrastructure. We've plowed as many boats as you can out there. I was out there today, and the amount of moorings that are popped out now are insane. The traffic's insane in both directions. The little
True.
kids and their e-bikes are now blasting up and down the sidewalks. And I'm thinking, we're going to explode how much more? And the Airbnbs are on fire down through East Lakeshore Drive. I think we're on our way to pretty good, as much as Mount Spade can handle for tourism. I don't know how much more you can do.
Well, as you said, it's not really tourism, it's a destination, recreation,
Recreation.
destination, yeah.
So what does that mean now?
Well, I mean, it's got, people who like to go to the lake or the parks, that Colchester offers something.
We
That
definitely
means
do.
that people are coming from other parts of the state or New York or New
Yeah.
Hampshire. Businesses will do well because we got an influx of people coming in.
Right.
So I could see it being a part of the economy.
I'm not against the growth of it, what was the vision supposed to be? And we've got LS2, LS1, LS3, LS4. I think we're on a pretty good roll with what we're trying to accomplish. And then, I'm not sure where this level, where this goes. That's my idea. I'm just a little confused on where and we got a lot going on.
Oh, we do. I mean, there's more than just those two avenues there. We got the state park,
Yeah.
Cat Park. We
Yeah.
got the other parks around the lake. We got
Colchester.
got our airport park. I mean, we've got trails. We got the bicycle causeway. Tons of people come to that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you're right. We address it, but I think we want to keep it
Right.
in the plan.
Right. My thought is, I think we're like, I don't know, what's the word for it? Enhancing what we have versus we don't have it all. When I read this, it's like we don't have anything there. And we have everything there, like you just explained, right? And we're enhancing what we have, but we're not looking to build massive infrastructure, putting up a new something. We're enhancing what we have now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I just think we need just a few more amenities. You know, just a place to either have a drink or get a cup of coffee or, you know, I know Pioneer is doing really well. We're having a couple of more places like that. Because when I drive down West Lake Shore Drive, I just see dollar bills like flying away to Burlington, you know, from all the boaters, you know, that are coming into the bay. You know, just there's money that is being spent, and I just want them to spend it in Colchester. So, especially with our local option tax and the possibility of getting up to 2%. You know, that would be helpful. And I think, you know, not to overdo it, not to go crazy, but just in terms of a lifestyle, just I think that would be nice too, so people don't have to go into Burlington, you know, for a dinner or something.
Sure.
I think
One,
e-bike rentals would be really cool, like, and advertise it for that too. I think I love going like to the cities, like Vancouver has you just go in and put your card in and you can tour the entire, it's just a fun thing to do. You can see the entire place, but yeah. I like e-bikes. I don't even own one, but I just like riding them. I've asked for one for Christmas.
a quick question. There's a reference here to the village on Mallett's Bay.
I was just trying to read that.
Are you guys familiar with that plan?
Wait, what is
We
it?
have one building. That's
Yes.
what the moorings is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because so the village on Mallett's Bay planning process, and there was a product created, kind of like a master plan of the West Lakeshore Drive. I believe it was limited to West Lakeshore Drive.
Correct.
And it was very expansive.
Yep.
And I came across someone's desk in planning and zoning at some point, and it was it's something interesting to look back on, to kind of see what was proposed as an idea back then.
Oh, yeah, I'd be
That's what
curious
you're
to see
thinking.
that.
Have you seen the village park thing? So it's very similar to what you're talking about. Where Ace Hardware is and that whole section. So you bulldoze everything out. You put the buildings up, you drive around back, you have all your shops. 25, 30 years ago, that was a great idea. It's still a good idea today, but
Yeah.
we still have Ace Hardware in all our buildings, and now we have some sewer pipes being connected.
It would
I mean,
look prettier.
Just saying, it's
If I
right.
owned that land, I would.
I
build
know,
those
it would
buildings
look
and build
nice.
Like a 4-story thing with a brewery on the top where you could sit out on the deck.
It's very
The boats coming into the boat launch,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, if I can
Cold
find
beer.
the copy of Village on
Give
Mallett's
it.
Bay, I'll put it in your packet,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
you can smile at it, because it was yeah, I mean, like Rich said, it was
Concept
plans
is-
for like a different road
Yep.
rerouting of West Lakeshore Drive. Very visionary.
What about this village park?
I'm not sure what exactly is being referenced there because what I understand to be Village Park exists,
Yes.
but I'm not sure if there was a larger master plan for it. I can look into it if you'd
Is
like.
that ring a bell with you?
What's Village Park? What is it?
Item 4 there,
Okay.
it says to, for development,
Yeah.
undeveloped land, but including but not limited to the village of Knott's Bay, which
So,
Zach brought up, and
yeah.
the village park.
Yeah, so the Village Park was because we had Airport Park, we poured a bunch of money into it, and never did anything for the village. So, and I was on the board that when we bought the land for the Village Park, and that was the beginning. And there was nothing there at that time. We bought it from,
Okay, so you're talking about the land there behind the water district?
Yep.
Okay,
that was 65 acres.
okay.
That was quite the extensive master plan for it. That it probably never come to fruition, but it actually has bridges that cross the ravine. You could have a walking path. It's pretty cool.
Okay, well, there's a walking path.
There's a
down there.
nice walking path. I've been on it a few times. But yeah,
That's about it down there. Okay, that's where we're talking, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so it seems like, from what I'm hearing, likely a lot of the effort here is to be continued, but this is a good point to possibly get some more engagement on as well. Duly noted. We will revisit the policies and actions when you've had time to look at them and the text a little more thoroughly. And one note as well, I am working with economic development to just get the text, the general gist, because there's a lot of statements about future trends, and this was all written prior to COVID. So there's items in here that are not even discussed, like, how many people in Colchester might be working remotely? Do you have people working from home who are spending their entire time, not commuting?
Right.
How is there anything to think about, in terms of, mixed use neighborhoods, things like that?
Mhm.
Telecommunications infrastructure, things
I
like
think we
that.
should be looking at remote workers, because I do think that's part of the future.
Sure.
And that's a good thing for, I think, Vermont. It's just that people will move up here and be able to earn a good salary and work remotely.
And the other item, which is not as interesting, well, no, I shouldn't say not as interesting. That was not the correct word to say. Could be very interesting, but not as glamorous might be, is, there's other considerations like data centers, for example. We'll touch on this a little bit because South Burlington has made the news recently, and we got a notification that they're adopting some zoning changes to regulate data centers. I'm not aware of any large plans at this time, so not something you need to have a knee-jerk reaction to, but when you think about trends in artificial intelligence and how much internet we need to exist in our current society, data centers are popping up to meet that. Large energy users, large amount of land users, water users. If there's anything you want to discuss and put in this chapter, let's think about it, because
And do we have any large tracts of land that would support that, with the water, energy? Well, yeah, they suck it out of the lake.
Yeah, but maybe we should put something in to safeguard
Yeah.
I
our,
just read
So-
an article in the New York Times about, states that are using it and where it's not working and where it is working. And I just, if you could kind of keep posted on that, like what is working, where they're not destroying the water, electricity rates are not soaring. I'm trying to pay attention to both sides. And so, because I think there's a lot of unknowns right now about.
So you're saying that the South Burlington regulations that you had in the pack addresses it?
they begin to.
It
Was
begins
that the
to.
utility that they were asking for?
That's different.
That's
We'll get to
Yeah,
that.
okay.
But no, it's so South Burlington has some regulations that start to split, or start to define what is a data center. Because if somebody came in for a data center today in Colchester, we'd have to look at our regulations and say, well,
Right.
where does this fit?
Right.
Without having a discussion or having it as identified as a use, are we looking at it as like manufacturing, industrial, there's a lot of gray related to that.
Yep.
So I definitely would encourage you to think down the line as that should be in the table of uses somewhere. But for now, if there's an overall direction, like if there's something a place you really don't want to see any sort of data center be, now would be a time. And in the land use discussions as well, probably when we're talking about really anywhere actually, we could have those discussions.
Do they have to go through Act 250 or not?
It might, depending on the size of the development.
Well, they need a large piece of land, so if it's over 11 acres, it's an automatically go to Act 250?
It could be. The nuance I think is, and Sarita, I think we might have read the same article, but data centers come in different sizes. So there are smaller ones that are, co-located potentially with other uses. Maybe it's the size of one semi-truck trailer. But then there's, these larger industrial scale data centers. And, you might be talking more about those larger ones that generally need flatter areas.
Yeah.
They need, less impact on natural resources to even get built. So, we might be naturally predisposed at this point to not having suitable land, but
But for the smaller contained ones, which is basically a box on some land, because it's a storage area for data machines, computers.
could be, yes.
Okay.
So there's different scales. We can get you more information on it, do some research, but
They're worth looking into because they really are very destructive. I think. I don't. And while I was reading that where they're being built now, they're not very conducive to it. They're looking for places that have low humidity and are cooler weather. So they want to be up north where there's water.
It
They're
would have to be heavily regulated.
mm-hmm.
Heavily.
Some sort of agreement with the PUCs around here. I just don't like them.
I just don't want that our water right now clean water right now is like gold.
It's what we have.
In 20, 30 years, I just think it's going to be so scarce. So protecting.
And some of them are so gigantic that, and they're down south right now, but there's some of them that are so big that it has jacked up their utility prices so high that they're actually paying more for their utilities than they are for their mortgages in these cities. It's crazy.
yeah,
Anyways.
no, it's weighing the energy costs, environmental impact, also impact to the local economy. If you take that land, give it to that use, or how many employees is that employing versus other valuable industries that may have a better impact to the local economy, or is there a good impact to the local economy if they're paying taxes? These things can all be weighed. Seems like more information might be useful here, so we
I
will
really don't know
make it a
lot
point.
about it. I mean, you get in the news, you get these big monster 1,000-acre things, but pretty unlikely, especially in Colchester. We're not. There are some data centers already in Vermont. There
Right.
must be
Yeah,
some.
they're small.
Yeah, so if they
Yeah.
fit the use of, if they're properly done, like anything else,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we look at it. That's just, but I don't know enough about it.
So,
And they sell it that it's going to be like this, job generating thing, but literally the job is building them, and then there's usually like between 10 and 12 people that actually work there after it's.
Troubleshooting.
yeah, so it's something we can get you more information
Okay.
on. But thinking about these sorts of trends in economic development, like I think the most commercial space that I've permitted in the last couple years has been self-storage facilities. I don't know that you, and people always ask you to allow them in more places. That's come in multiple times. So keeping stuff like that in mind, as well as, battery storage might also be under more of like the energy discussion. So
Yeah.
we can talk about that at a later meeting. Did want to shift into just kind of 4B, planning public engagement for the land use chapter. So, as we mentioned, July to December, there's going to be at least 3 meetings here where, we're talking about the neighborhoods. My goal, of course, would be to not limit the public engagement to just those meetings, just because getting people to come to a meeting, difficult at best. The survey you conducted, at the beginning of this process, got 340 responses. Kind of on the exit part of that survey, survey respondents noted that really they would only participate by a survey. That was an overwhelming majority response. In-person meetings, 10% of people maybe would be willing to come. Tabling, they might stop by if they see us. But, generally surveys seem to be what works here. So one idea is sort of throughout that duration doing a survey. I've worked with or coordinating with the GIS folks at the Regional Planning Commission to do maybe a more interactive survey in the different neighborhoods where someone could click on their neighborhood and then answer a subset of questions that might be interesting. If something like that was pursued, we would want to talk about how to get that out into the community. I know like Front Porch Forum worked well, I think, to get some responses. So, might want to work with you all on spreading the word if we do something like that. But likely we'll want to spread the word anyway on these meetings. So, if anyone wants to volunteer as a Front Porch Forum poster, Wendy.
Doing it. I don't mind doing that. Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Get violent with it. Let them know. Get your neighborhood represented.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
So, would it be like every draft we would send out, which I think would be a great idea to say, this is now the second draft. What do you think? On some areas.
Or before.
Well, I was thinking this would
After?
Yeah.
So
we
here's a
come-
question. Actually, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Should this occur as a way to gather initial input? Specific, not like initial input on the plan, but initial input on the land use section. Or would you find it more useful to have people react to a map and give input on some work you've done, a draft, for example?
I think before is fine because they're not going to be real keen about the map thing. And we definitely don't want to put the regional map out. It's confusing to us, probably the general public. I'd rather have their neighborhood, what you feel, what you like. Maybe you could put a couple blips so they talk about Colchester in general. But if you get people to understand you're talking exactly about their neighborhood, you will get a response.
Yes.
I cannot believe you will not get a response once you get down to your individual neighborhoods. Explain what your neighborhood is. So
Yeah.
Dick knew exactly what his neighborhood was because he looked it up. Yeah.
No, I think before, I agree with that. And kind of hopefully will overlap into all of Colchester
Yeah.
on what they like and what they don't like. Not just in their neighborhood, but getting from their neighborhood to anywhere else around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be good. I think, like Rich was saying, we could definitely do an integration of both questions about your neighborhood, but also questions about Colchester. And then we'd have information of what people from, for example, the Northeast Quadrant feel about Colchester.
Yeah.
As well as what they feel about their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, if no one from the Bay neighborhood ever goes to exit 16 for their groceries. Maybe that is an interesting thing to know about commuting patterns and where people tend to go. So
That's true, yeah.
just
They may
thinking
be
about things.
going up to Milton.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't.
I don't know.
Okay, so we can do something like that. Any other thoughts on that process? I think one thing that might be useful to me is if we do develop a survey, if there's 2 commissioners who would like to possibly review some questions, I'd love to get a draft to you all. Understanding we're kind of meeting on a monthly basis, and that's a lot of time. Having 2 commissioners to possibly volunteer some time to review draft questions would be great.
Okay.
Anybody like to volunteer?
I'm glad
Sarita?
to.
Very
I'm
good.
glad to.
Anyone else?
Is that like in connection with the whole?
I'm happy to jump in, there's no doubt.
Okay.
If somebody else wants to jump in, but Sarita wants to, yeah, I'll do it for sure. Questions might not be appropriate, but Sarita will correct me on that. She's state level, she's big time.
Zach, I really like how you ask us questions,
Yeah.
and you keep asking. I really appreciate that. No, I really appreciate that. That's very helpful.
I mean, my goal here is that I would like to use this time for you guys to kind of give me the pulse, because after this, I've got 3 weeks, a little bit less, to get you the next step.
Okay.
And, I want to make sure that that is what you're expecting. So,
I have to say, I think this format is really good. Once we read through this is very helpful.
and we might end up, we discussed in an earlier meeting, kind of changing the 5-tiered approach from vision, goals, objectives, policies, and actions into a 3-tiered approach. So there's going to be some simplification, but it's going to be like moving the pieces of the puzzle around. I don't think we're going to get rid of anything. So
So what are the 3?
I believe
from 5 to 3.
we
what are
would get into. I'm glad I brought it. Foundational principles is number 1. Number 2 is objectives. Number 3 is actions.
Define foundational principles.
Define it.
Yeah.
We do have. So did Kathy Ann made a nice graphic.
Okay. You know what? I should go
It's
back.
printed
and
even
look.
in color.
Oh.
It's got a
Oh, yeah,
lighthouse on
yeah.
it.
Okay.
So this,
Yep, I
if
just
you've
did-
seen it before,
It was in one of our packets?
it's likely
Yeah.
in a packet. I can go back and take a look and make sure, but this is kind of, I think, where we want to get to. It's going to be
Okay.
simpler,
So I remember having that one.
but
What's between foundational principles and actions?
Goals?
Go.
I mean-
Is between foundational principles and actions is goals?
objectives.
Objectives.
So, I mean, you can think of like the foundational principles is going to be pretty much your vision and goals. Objectives are likely going to be your policies and objectives that are in the current plan, and actions are going to be the actions. There's a little bit of movement either way. It's not perfect, but I think the goal is really to make sure this is pretty readable and straightforward. We don't want to create a hierarchy just to have a hierarchy. So we'll take a look at that. Just as an FYI on the engagement aspect here, I intend to reach out, at least for the first meeting, to landowners in those growth areas who I've worked with in the development review process, because they've had projects come through. I think they'd be valuable to have some input on, and they might come to a meeting if personally invited. So I'll cross my fingers and I'll hope that people actually come.
Do you think they'd come to an evening meeting or a day meeting and not on a Monday?
Well, they come to DRB meetings, but it's probably because they have to, right?
Well, yeah.
Because they need to. But at the same time, I think there's some valuable discussion here, especially for those growth areas. Because in Severance Corners, for example, you've got people who are creating a lot of housing. Many of them still own those buildings, so now they have tenants there, and they know what the tenants want. And you know, have an opportunity to talk to them and say, hey, you know, here's a random question: where are your rec amenities? You might ask them that, maybe, or you might ask them, you know, what's going on with commercial? We thought there'd be more commercial development here. And having someone to possibly answer that could be a good conversation, because they might also have information for you all. Like, you know, people would love to walk elsewhere in Colchester, but they're a little isolated right here. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but people love walking around on that cinder path at Severance Corners.
Yeah, that
It's
one
like a
path,
track.
yeah, that one path,
Yep.
yeah.
And, you know, just thinking about that, like, that's important observations to have here.
Absolutely.
So, we'll do that at least for that first meeting. Likely, you know, I've had a couple connections with educators at high school. So would like to, of course, share some public engagement opportunities with them. I know the survey was well timed with town meeting day. They were doing a lot of civic focus in some of the social studies classes. So we're likely going to miss that boat in the summer here.
Oh.
But this goes through the fall, so maybe we could pick up some engagement activities with the youth population in the fall. We talked about, you know, some online forums and ways to, you know, invite people to engage online. Speaking, you know, about some other ideas for advertising, you know, there are destinations in each of these neighborhoods, places people go to. We might be grasping in the few of them for ideas, but these could be good places to post, you know, information in places we don't normally post information. Try to get some people interested, or at least aware of the survey, things like that. So might have some more to come there. And if there's any events that you all are aware of from now until December where you think, you know, the town could table or reach out to an organizer, please let me know.
How about the 4th of July parade? Do we have anything we could hand out, or?
Well, it's a little bit late for a float.
No, not necessarily a flow, but
We walk in the parade and
yeah.
hand out
You could,
surveys,
like, punch it up and throw it at people.
make sure some candies goes with it, and they might pick it up.
I just
Yeah.
ordered candy and I said, I'm looking through the stuff to order, and I said, I'm not going to get chocolate because it's all going to melt.
Yeah. That's why it's all hard candy or gum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just as an off-topic FYI, sometimes I've picked up on occasion Cabot cheese has been thrown out from different people, little squares of them.
Ooh.
Could be a nice treat. Keep it in mind. But very off topic for what we're on right now. So
Sorry.
And healthy too. No?
yeah, we'll wrap a QR code around it. Likely a little bit of a tight window for that one.
Yeah.
Plus, I think tabling at a parade, it's like, you know,
I
people want
know.
to sit and enjoy the parade.
A lot of people out there, though.
Yes, for sure. Could stick things on people's cars and parking lots. That could be fun. But they might
The
get annoyed.
town doesn't have a little float or anything.
I'd have to look into it. I'm not usually involved, so I don't.
I don't think so. I
No.
don't remember one, but.
No.
A lot of fire trucks.
It's a municipality. We'll figure something out, maybe. Do you have like
So-
a QR code that we could just like make a big poster or something?
We do have we do have like an A-frame sign that we've put out for the survey before. I don't know that we.
I don't know. I'll talk to you outside.
I don't know that an
about it.
A-frame sign would be
Yeah.
great, but yeah. These are just some ideas of public engagement. I definitely have a little bit to go on here with, you know, front porch forum postings. Wendy, I'll be, you know, we'll stay in touch on that. For the survey, Rich and Sarita, I'll be in touch when I talk a little more CCRPC. I want to have this conversation
Can you
tonight.
send the questions out ahead of time so we can look at them?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, that my goal would be work with CCRBC to create something, and then run it by you both
Okay,
before we eventually bring it to the public.
okay.
And I think the goal there is to keep it a little bit high level, just because you want this to kind of go across Colchester and also kind of capture discussion that's not happening at the meetings. So we'll like to include some of that structure in those meetings, just so that you all feel like you're getting consistent information. All right,
All set?
that is all for
That is
me.
all? Okay, so let's have a motion for minutes, please.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes of May 19th.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes pass. Staff report, miscellaneous items.
All right, very quickly, in your packet, you received a Section 248 de minimis application. This is for co-location of a telecommunications facility on an existing facility. Staff reviewed it. I don't see any large things you need to be aware of, but I'm just noting that you are in receipt of this.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Just the public is okay. I mean, we heard a lot from public about the PUC and these towers, but this isn't like a huge tower, right?
This is an existing tower, and this
they're just
is
gonna add to-
location of antennas on it.
Gotcha.
If it was a brand new tower, I'd have a much different tone.
Okay.
Sorry, I could have put more oomph on that. And then also noting that you're in receipt of some draft regulations from South Burlington. As a neighboring municipality, we do not, we get notified of their proposed amendments. There's nothing in here that directly affects land adjacent to Colchester. Of note, they are regulating some data centers. So if you want to take a look at those regulations, go ahead. And otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward update. They're adding some EV parking space requirements, other fun things like that, regulating rare, threatened, endangered species, some good stuff. But not necessarily stuff that we need to spend much more time talking about.
You know, the only thing I want to pay attention to in data centers is who's using the water, who has access to the water in the lake, or who has, South Burlington or Burlington has a data center. Who says that they can take 30,000 gallons a day out to operate the data center? I mean, who permits that, and how is that equitable to the other municipalities? So just that is a real concern of mine.
Yeah, it's something to think about. I don't have an answer for you. Not that you're looking for me to give you
No,
one,
I'm
but
not.
it's a from our current development review process, we require that there's adequate water, but that's a conversation with the water district. And if it's Champlain Water District, it's likely a different conversation than if it's Fire District number 2.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So. Planning and Zoning Monthly Report. It's in your packet. If you have any questions, let me know. Of note, no new residential permits, and we are behind on development, so you're definitely seeing a little bit of slowdown there. But that being said, multi-purpose, kind of the renovation permits, we're pretty far ahead. So people staying home, working on what they have.
Makes sense.
Okay, all set? Motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
second?
I second it?
I just need a
Okay.
second. Yeah, thank you, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are good. Thank you.
Thank you.